Family reunions are supposed to be about reconnecting, sharing laughter, and making new memories. At least that was what I thought as I walked into my Aunt Susan's backyard that sunny June afternoon. After fighting my way back from financial disaster, I was finally ready to face my relatives with my head held high. I smoothed my sundress and took a deep breath, searching the crowd for my sister Megan. We had always been competitive, but I was hoping today would be different. When I raised my glass to toast to family, I never expected what came next. Megan stood up, clinked her glass loudly, and announced to everyone that I was bankrupt and about to be evicted. The room fell silent, but I just smiled. Little did she know I had just purchased her dream vacation home that very morning. To understand why I bought that house, you need to understand my relationship with Megan. Being 3 years younger than my sister meant I grew up in her shadow. From the moment I could walk, it seemed like I was always trying to catch up. When I was 6, I came home proudly clutching my first-place ribbon from the school art contest. My parents were just beginning to congratulate me when Megan walked in and announced she had been selected to play the lead in the school play. Just like that, my accomplishment faded into the background as my parents gushed over her success. This pattern repeated throughout our childhood. Janie got straight, as this term my mom would say only for my dad to respond, "That's wonderful," just like Megan did when she was that age. No matter what I achieved, it was always compared to what Megan had done first. I never resented my parents for it. They didn't even realize they were doing it. But Megan noticed, and it only fueled her need to stay ahead. In high school, I joined the debate team and worked my way up to captain by junior year. The day I told my family, Megan announced she had been accepted to 3 prestigious colleges with partial scholarships. During my college graduation, as family gathered to celebrate my business degree, Megan shared that she had just closed her first major real estate deal. We moved in different directions after college. I pursued finance in New York, climbing my way up through a respected investment firm. Meanwhile, Megan established herself as one of the top real estate agents in our hometown of Burlington, Vermont. We maintained a polite relationship, exchanging birthday calls and meeting at family holidays, but the competition never truly disappeared. "How are those tiny apartments in New York?" she would ask during Thanksgiving dinner. "I just sold a 5-bedroom lakefront property for $700,000. The commission alone could probably pay your rent for a year." I would smile and talk about my latest promotion or investment success, and the volley would continue. Our parents would exchange glances but never intervened. This was just how we communicated. 2 years ago, Megan began talking incessantly about a vacation property she was saving for on Lake George. It wasn't just any property. It was the historic Willow Creek Cottage, a charming 2-story home with a private dock in a secluded cove. She brought it up at every family gathering, showing pictures and describing how she was only a few months away from being able to make an offer. "It's the perfect investment," she would say. "The rental potential is amazing, and property values in that area just keep climbing." What Megan didn't know, what none of my family knew, was that for the past 5 years I had been helping our parents financially. Dad's retirement fund had taken a hit during the recession, and Mom's part-time teaching job didn't cover the gap. Their prescription costs alone had nearly doubled. But they were proud people who didn't want anyone to know they were struggling, especially not Megan, who they knew would swoop in and take over their lives under the guise of helping. So I quietly sent them money each month. It wasn't a hardship at first. My salary was good and I lived modestly despite working in finance. I never mentioned it during family gatherings, and my parents kept their promise not to tell anyone. It was our secret, and I was happy to help the people who had sacrificed so much for me growing up. What I didn't realize was how this secret support would eventually push me to the financial edge when my own crisis hit. It started with a phone call from my college roommate, Alyssa. She had co-founded a tech startup developing an innovative financial app that would help people better manage their investments. I had always admired her entrepreneurial spirit, and the business plan she shared was solid. After carefully reviewing the projections and meeting the other founders, I decided to invest a significant portion of my savings, $200,000. For the first year, the investment seemed brilliant. The app launched successfully, user numbers were growing steadily, and there was talk of acquisition by a larger company. I started mentally calculating my return and planning how I would use it. Maybe I'd finally buy that condo in Brooklyn I'd been eyeing. Then came the call that changed everything. "Janie, we need to talk." Alyssa's voice was strained over the phone. "There's been a problem." A security breach had exposed users' financial data. Lawsuits followed. Then came the discovery that one of the co-founders had been misrepresenting certain aspects of their technology to investors. It wasn't fraud exactly, more like excessive optimism, but the damage was done. Within 3 months, the company folded and my investment evaporated. I could have absorbed this loss under normal circumstances. I had always been cautious with my money, maintaining an emergency fund and diversifying my investments. But life had other plans. 2 weeks after the startup collapsed, Mom called in tears. Dad had fallen and needed emergency surgery. What she eventually admitted was that this wasn't the first health crisis. Dad had been battling a chronic condition for months, but they hadn't told me because they knew I was busy with work and had just lost my investment. The surgery was successful, but their insurance didn't cover all the costs. There were specialists, medications, rehabilitation therapy. My emergency fund dwindled as I helped cover these expenses while still sending their monthly support. I took out a personal loan, then maxed out 2 credit cards. I started picking up consulting work on weekends and evenings, sleeping just 4 hours a night. Something had to give. After meeting with a financial advisor, I made the difficult decision to file for Chapter 13 bankruptcy protection. This wasn't the complete financial ruin that most people imagine when they hear bankruptcy. It was a structured repayment plan that would allow me to keep my assets while restructuring my debts. I told only 3 people: my best friend Taylor, who worked in real estate and had connections with financial advisors, my parents, who needed to know why I had to temporarily reduce their monthly support, and my boss, who was surprisingly understanding and helped me adjust my work schedule to accommodate the required financial counseling sessions. I made them all promise not to tell anyone, especially Megan. The last thing I needed was my sister's judgment, or worse, her pity. I was determined to work through this setback privately and with dignity. The next 8 months were some of the hardest of my life. I stuck to a strict budget, took on additional consulting projects, and slowly began to rebuild. My credit score took a hit, but I managed to keep my small apartment and my job. Eventually, I even landed a promotion with a significant pay increase, which accelerated my financial recovery. What I didn't know during those months of struggle was that Megan had somehow discovered my bankruptcy filing. Our mother had kept careful records of all Dad's medical expenses, including the payments I had made. During a visit to help organize their home office, Megan had found these records, along with a note from me referencing my financial situation. Curious, she had done some digging and found the public bankruptcy filing. But she hadn't understood the full picture. She didn't know about my years of financial support to our parents. She didn't know it was a Chapter 13 restructuring rather than a complete liquidation. And most importantly, she didn't know I was already on the path to recovery. All she saw was an opportunity to finally, definitively prove that she was the more successful sister. Lake George held a special place in both our hearts. Some of my earliest memories were of summers spent at our grandmother's cabin on the northeastern shore of the lake. Before the rivalry between Megan and me took hold, those summer months were magical times of sisterly bonding. I remembered how we would wade into the clear water together, searching for smooth stones to skip across the surface. Megan, being older, could usually get 4 or 5 bounces to my 2, but instead of making me feel inadequate, she would stand behind me, guiding my arm through the proper motion until I improved. In the evenings, our grandmother would build a small fire in the fire pit, and we would roast marshmallows and tell stories. Megan had the best imagination and would invent elaborate tales about the lake's creatures and the forest spirits that supposedly lived in the surrounding woods. I would listen wide-eyed, snuggled against her side under a shared blanket. On rainy days, we would sit on the covered porch in the porch swing, carving our initials into the wooden armrest with Grandpa's old pocket knife. M+J forever, surrounded by a lopsided heart. It was our secret mark, proof that we had been there, that we belonged. When Grandma passed away when I was 11, the cabin was sold to pay for her final expenses and settle her estate. Megan and I had cried together, devastated to lose not just our grandmother, but also the one place where we felt truly connected to each other. "We'll come back someday," Megan had promised, holding my hand at the funeral. "When we're grown up, we'll buy a cabin right on this lake, and we can have our own summers here again." It was one of the few promises between us that hadn't gotten tangled up in competition. For years afterward, whenever life got stressful, I would close my eyes and imagine being back at Lake George, feeling the gentle rocking of the porch swing and the simple joy of being with my sister before everything got complicated. 20 years later, I learned through my parents that Megan had been aggressively saving to purchase a historic property on Lake George, Willow Creek Cottage. She had talked about it during one of their weekly phone calls, describing how she had been putting aside money for 5 years and was getting close to her goal. She says it's a smart investment opportunity, Mom told me. Apparently, vacation rentals in that area can bring in quite a bit of money during the summer season. Something about the way she described it made me uneasy. The Megan I remembered from those childhood summers wouldn't have thought of Lake George as an investment opportunity. She would have seen it as a way to recapture something precious that we had lost. During one of our infrequent phone calls, Megan mentioned the cottage in passing, her voice taking on an uncharacteristic dreaminess. It has the most amazing sunrise view over the water, she said, and an old-fashioned porch swing that reminds me of Grandma's. For a moment, I could hear the sister I had been so close to all those summers ago. I wondered if this cottage might finally be the thing that could bridge the gap between us, a shared connection to our past that transcended our competitive present. Then, almost as quickly, her tone changed back to its usual bragging cadence. Of course, I'll probably only use it a few weeks a year myself. The rental potential is the real draw. I'm only about 6 months away from being able to make an offer, and my real estate contacts tell me it's going to hit the market soon. The moment of connection vanished, replaced by the familiar feeling of being on the receiving end of Megan's success story. 2 weeks before the family reunion, an unexpected letter arrived in my mailbox. 3 years earlier, I had been in a minor car accident. The other driver had been at fault, but their insurance had disputed some of my medical claims. The case had dragged on for so long that I had almost forgotten about it. The letter informed me that the dispute had finally been settled, and I was entitled to a settlement of $60,000. The timing couldn't have been better. With my new promotion and this windfall, my financial situation had suddenly become much more flexible. My bankruptcy repayment plan was on track, and this money could be used to establish a new emergency fund or perhaps even make a modest investment. Then came the call from Taylor that would change everything. "Janie, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice excited. "You know that Lake George property your sister has been talking about, Willow Creek Cottage? It's going into foreclosure. The current owners are underwater on their mortgage, and the bank is taking possession next week. It'll hit the market at a significant discount to fair market value, probably 30% below what your sister has been planning to offer." My pulse quickened. "How do you know this?" "One of the agents in my office handles properties in that area. She just got the listing. It's not public knowledge yet, but it will be by Monday. The bank wants a quick sale." I found myself asking the question before I had fully thought it through. "What's the asking price?" Taylor told me. "With my settlement money as a down payment and my newly improved income, I could qualify for a mortgage to cover the rest." "If you're interested, you need to move fast," Taylor warned. "Once this hits the market officially, there will be multiple offers." I thanked her and said I'd think about it, but my mind was already racing. The family reunion was this weekend. Megan would be there. I had been planning to bring her a small gift, a congratulatory card for when she eventually purchased her dream property. Now I was contemplating something entirely different. "Oh," and Janie Taylor added before hanging up. "The agent mentioned she already had an interested buyer, a real estate agent from Vermont who's been watching this property for years. She's scheduled to view it Monday morning." Megan. It had to be Megan. "Would the agent be willing to show it before then?" I asked. "Say Saturday morning?" There was a pause on the line. "I can ask. Are you serious about this?" Was I really considering buying the very property my sister had been dreaming of for years? "Yes," I said finally. "I'm very serious." I arrived at Aunt Susan's house Friday evening, my mind still spinning from the conversation with Taylor. The reunion was a weekend-long affair with relatives staying either at Susan's sprawling farmhouse or at nearby hotels. I had booked a room at the Holiday Inn 5 miles away, giving myself the option to escape if family togetherness became overwhelming. The first evening was casual. A cookout in the backyard with burgers, corn on the cob, and enough potato salad to feed a small army. Most of the family had already arrived, and the yard was filled with the sounds of conversation and laughter. Kids chased each other around the oak tree, while the adults caught up on a year's worth of news. I scanned the crowd for Megan and spotted her near the drink table holding court with our cousins. She looked exactly as I remembered, perfectly highlighted hair designer sundress and the confident posture of someone who knew she was successful. I took a deep breath and made my way toward her, a carefully wrapped gift bag in hand. Before I reached her, I overheard her speaking to someone on her phone. I paused behind a nearby tree, not intentionally eavesdropping, but caught by the mention of my name. "No, I haven't told Janie I know yet," she was saying, her voice low. "I'm waiting for the right moment. You should have seen the email from the bank, completely underwater, filing for bankruptcy protection." After all her big talk about her finance career, she laughed. "I guess not everyone can be good with money." My stomach clenched. So she did know about my financial troubles. And from the sound of it, she was planning to use that information somehow during the reunion. "Don't worry, I'll be subtle about it," she continued. "Just a casual mention during dinner tomorrow. Everyone deserves to know the truth about Little Miss New York finance expert." I stepped back, my gift bag suddenly feeling like a lead weight in my hands. Inside was a small model of a lakeside cottage and a card that read, "Looking forward to visiting your dream home someday. Love, Janie." I had planned to give it to her as a peace offering, a way of acknowledging her achievement without competition. Now it felt naive, childish even. I retreated to the dessert table, trying to process what I'd heard. As I absently picked at a piece of apple pie, my cousin Amanda sat down beside me. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, nudging me with her elbow. "Megan getting to you already?" Amanda had always been perceptive. As the middle child between two competitive brothers, she understood sibling dynamics all too well. I shrugged, not wanting to admit how much Megan's words had stung. "Just the usual." Amanda lowered her voice. "You should know she's been talking about you to the family. Nothing direct, just little comments about how challenging the finance industry must be right now and how worried she is about you." My face must have shown my surprise, because Amanda quickly added, "Most of us figured it was just Megan being Megan. You know how she gets." I did know, but this felt different. More calculated. More cruel. "Did she mention anything specific?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Amanda hesitated. "She might have mentioned something about financial troubles. Is that true? Are you having problems?" I considered lying, then decided against it. Amanda had always been kind to me, and I was tired of secrets. "I filed for bankruptcy protection last year after a bad investment and some family medical expenses," I admitted. "It's a restructuring plan, not liquidation. I'm keeping my apartment and my job. In fact, I just got a promotion." Relief washed over Amanda's face. "That sounds a lot less dramatic than how Megan described it. She made it sound like you were about to be homeless." A surge of anger replaced my initial hurt. Not only was Megan planning to announce my financial troubles, but she was also exaggerating them to make herself look better by comparison. My phone buzzed with a text from Taylor. "Agent can show the property Saturday morning at 9. Confirmed. Let me know if you want me to set it up." I looked up at the fairy lights strung across Aunt Susan's backyard, at the family I had been so nervous to face, at Megan still holding court by the drink table. Something shifted inside me. A decision crystallized. I excused myself from Amanda and walked to a quiet corner of the yard. I called Taylor back. "Set it up," I said without preamble. "I'll be there at 9. "Are you sure about this?" Taylor asked. "This is a major purchase, and it sounds like it might complicate things with your sister." "Things are already complicated," I replied. "And yes, I'm sure." After hanging up, I made another call to my bank, confirming that the pre-approval for a mortgage based on my new salary was ready to go. Then I rejoined the party, a strange calm settling over me. Megan caught my eye across the yard and raised her glass in a mocking toast. I smiled back, already planning my 6 a.m. alarm to drive to Lake George. I slipped out of Aunt Susan's house at 5:30 the next morning, leaving a note saying I needed to run an errand and would be back for the afternoon activities. The drive to Lake George took just under 2 hours, giving me plenty of time to second-guess my decision. Was I really going to buy a house? A vacation home, no less, primarily to spite my sister? It seemed petty, vindictive, and entirely out of character for me. Yet something deeper was driving this decision. Perhaps it was the years of competitive one-upmanship. Perhaps it was her plan to humiliate me in front of the family. Or perhaps it was the realization that the Lake George property represented something more significant than just a real estate transaction. The GPS directed me down a winding road that hugged the shoreline of the lake. As I rounded a bend, Willow Creek Cottage came into view, and my breath caught in my throat. It was exactly as I had imagined from Megan's descriptions. a charming two-story structure with weathered blue clapboards, siding white trim, and a wide front porch that extended along the entire front of the house. A simple wooden dock stretched out into the clear water, and towering pine trees provided privacy on either side of the property. I parked in the gravel driveway just as a black SUV pulled in behind me. A professional-looking woman in her 50s emerged, hand extended. "You must be Janie Wilson," she said, smiling. "I'm Patricia Knowles from Lakeside Realty. Taylor speaks very highly of you." "Thank you for accommodating such an early showing," I said, shaking her hand. "Not a problem at all. The bank is eager to move this property quickly. Shall we take a look inside?" The interior of the cottage exceeded my expectations. The first floor featured an open-plan living and dining area with original hardwood floors, a stone fireplace, and large windows overlooking the lake. The kitchen had been recently updated with modern appliances while maintaining its rustic charm. A small bathroom and laundry room completed the downstairs. Upstairs were 3 modestly sized but comfortable bedrooms and a renovated full bathroom. The primary bedroom had its own small balcony, offering a panoramic view of the water. The property includes 100 feet of private shoreline and the dock, Patricia explained as we walked outside to tour the grounds. The previous owners installed a new septic system 2 years ago, and the roof was replaced just before that. Overall, it's in excellent condition for a property of this age. As we walked around to the side of the house, I froze. There, on the covered portion of the side porch, was a wooden swing nearly identical to the one at our grandmother's cabin. Without thinking, I approached it and ran my fingers along the armrest. "Is everything all right?" Patricia asked. "Yes, I'm sorry. It's just... this reminds me of somewhere special from my childhood." I examined the armrest more closely and felt my heart skip a beat. There, partially worn away by years of weather and repainting, was a faint carving that looked remarkably like the M+J that Megan and I had carved at our grandmother's cabin. It couldn't possibly be the same swing, could it? The coincidence seemed too perfect. "Do you know the history of this swing?" I asked Patricia. She shook her head. "I believe it came with the property when the previous owners purchased it 15 years ago. They mentioned it might have been salvaged from another lakeside property that was being demolished." My mind raced. Our grandmother's cabin had been torn down shortly after it was sold. Was it possible that the new owners had salvaged the swing, and it had somehow made its way here? The timing would be about right. Whether it was actually our childhood swing or simply a remarkable coincidence, it felt like a sign. This place was meant to be connected to our family story. "I'd like to make an offer," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. Patricia's eyebrows raised slightly. "Without discussing numbers or contingencies, I'm prepared to offer the full asking price contingent on a standard home inspection with a 30-day close. I have mortgage pre-approval and can provide proof of funds for the down payment." We returned to the kitchen, where Patricia laid out the paperwork. As I began signing the offer documents, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Where are you? Megan's looking for you. Says she has a special announcement planned for lunch." I texted back quickly. "Had to run an errand. Be back by noon." As I continued with the paperwork, Patricia mentioned casually, "You know, it's funny. I had another client who's been watching this property for years. A real estate agent from Burlington. She's been calling every few months to check if it might be coming on the market. She has an appointment to see it on Monday." "Really?" I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "That is a coincidence." She seemed quite passionate about this particular cottage. Mentioned something about childhood memories of the lake. I felt bad having to tell her it was already under contract when she called to confirm yesterday. I paused, pen hovering over the final signature line. "What did you tell her exactly?" "Just that the property was under contract to a J. Wilson. I couldn't share more details than that." J. Wilson. My legal name was Jane Wilson, though I had gone by Janie since childhood. Megan wouldn't make the connection unless she already knew I was here, which was highly unlikely. As I signed the last document, Patricia excused herself to make a copy, leaving me alone in the kitchen. I walked back out to the porch swing and sat down, letting the gentle motion soothe my conflicted feelings. I had come here prepared to buy this cottage partly out of spite, partly to reclaim something from my childhood, partly to prevent Megan from achieving her goal. But sitting in this peaceful spot, looking out at the sunlight dancing on the lake's surface, I realized I genuinely wanted this place for myself, not just to take it away from Megan. Patricia returned with my copies of the documents. "The seller is motivated, so I expect to hear back very quickly." I'll call you as soon as I have news. Thank you, I said, standing up from the swing. One more question. The listing mentioned the property comes fully furnished. Yes, everything you see stays with the house. The previous owners left everything when they ran into financial trouble. The bank has included all furnishings in the sale. As we walked back to our cars, I took one last look at the cottage. I could picture summer mornings on the dock, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. Family gatherings around the fireplace in winter. Maybe eventually, when the hurt between us had healed, even Megan could visit and reconnect with the joy we had once shared at the lake. Patricia shook my hand again. I'll be in touch very soon, likely later today. I checked my watch. It was just past 10:30. If I hurried, I could make it back to Aunt Susan's by noon, just in time for the family lunch, where Megan planned to make her announcement about my bankruptcy. As I pulled out of the driveway, my phone rang. It was Taylor. Did you see it? What did you think? I loved it, I admitted. I've already made an offer. That was fast. I just got some additional information you might want to know. What kind of information? I asked, putting the phone on speaker as I navigated back to the main road. I was curious about why your sister was so obsessed with this specific property, so I did some digging. She's been working with an investor group. Based on the plans they've filed with the county, they're looking to purchase several lakefront properties, including Willow Creek Cottage, to develop a luxury vacation rental complex. I nearly swerved off the road. What? But she told everyone it would be a family place somewhere to recapture our childhood memories. The planning documents suggest otherwise. They're proposing to renovate the existing structures and add amenities like hot tubs, fire pits, and boat rentals. It would be operated as a high-end rental business, not a family retreat. The peaceful feeling I had experienced on the porch swing evaporated, replaced by a renewed sense of betrayal. Megan hadn't just been planning to turn our childhood dreams into a business opportunity. She had been lying to the family about her intentions. Thanks for telling me, I said quietly. I need to get back to the reunion. Megan's planning to announce my bankruptcy at lunch. She's what? That's cruel, Janie. And unnecessary. That's Megan, I replied, always needing to be the winner no matter the cost. As I hung up, my phone pinged with an email from Patricia. Offer accepted. Congratulations on your new lake house. Signing appointment Monday at 10 a.m. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Elation at securing the cottage, guilt about taking something Megan wanted, anger at her deception about the property's intended use, and anxiety about the confrontation to come at lunch. But underneath it all was a strange sense of rightness. Whatever happened next, Willow Creek Cottage was mine. I made it back to Aunt Susan's with 15 minutes to spare before lunch. The backyard had been transformed since the previous evening. Long tables covered with checkered cloths had been set up under the shade of the oak trees. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and various extended family members were already finding their seats, balancing plates of fried chicken, potato, salad, and corn on the cob. I slipped into the house to freshen up, mentally preparing myself for whatever Megan had planned. When I emerged, Amanda waved me over to a spot she had saved. "Where have you been? Megan's been asking about you all morning," she whispered as I sat down. "Just had to take care of something," I said vaguely. "What's she planning exactly?" Amanda shrugged. "Not sure, but she's been smiling like the cat that ate the canary. And she asked Uncle Dave to make sure everyone has a full glass for toasts." As if on cue, Megan appeared at the head of the main table, clinking her glass with a spoon. The family conversations gradually died down as everyone turned their attention to her. "First, I want to thank Aunt Susan for hosting another wonderful reunion," she began, raising her glass in Susan's direction. The family applauded politely. "Family is so important, isn't it?" Megan continued, her voice carrying across the yard. "We share our joys, our sorrows, our successes, and our failures. We support each other through good times and bad." Her eyes found mine across the table, and I saw the gleam of anticipation in them. My stomach tightened. "I'd like to propose a toast to my sister Janie," she said, turning to face me directly. "Many of you know her as the successful New York finance expert, always giving us investment tips and talking about her glamorous Manhattan life." Several relatives nodded, looking at me with friendly smiles. I forced myself to maintain eye contact with Megan, refusing to show any discomfort. "What you might not know," she continued, her voice dropping to a tone of false concern, "is that Janie has been hiding something from all of us. Something I think the family deserves to know, especially since she's been advising some of you on your finances." The yard fell silent. I could feel curious eyes turning toward me. Janie filed for bankruptcy last year. Megan announced the words falling like stones into the quiet gathering. She's lost her savings, maxed out her credit cards, and is about to be evicted from her apartment. All those stories about her finance success. Not quite the full picture. The silence that followed was excruciating. I saw shock, confusion, and worst of all, pity on the faces of my relatives. My parents, seated at the far end of the table, looked stricken. I took a deep breath and stood up. The anger I had been suppressing all day sharpened into something cold and clear. "Thank you for your concern, Megan," I said, my voice steady. "Since we're sharing family secrets, perhaps I should clarify a few points." I looked around at my family, many of whom I only saw once a year at these gatherings. Yes, I filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy protection last year, not Chapter 7 liquidation as Megan suggests. The difference is significant. Chapter 13 allows you to keep your assets while restructuring your debts. I still have my apartment, my job, and as of last month, a promotion. Megan's triumphant smile faltered slightly. What Megan doesn't know, or chose not to mention, is why I experienced financial difficulty. For the past 5 years, I've been helping Mom and Dad with medical expenses and living costs. My parents exchanged alarmed glances. I gave them a reassuring nod. "It's okay. There's no need for secrets anymore." I turned back to the gathering. When Dad needed emergency surgery last year, their insurance didn't cover all the costs. This happened right after I lost a significant investment in a startup that failed unexpectedly. The combination pushed me to file for bankruptcy protection, a responsible financial decision that has allowed me to recover while meeting my obligations. The expressions around the table were shifting from pity to something more complex, respect perhaps, or at least understanding. "I'm not ashamed of having faced financial difficulties," I continued. "Many Americans do at some point in their lives. What matters is how we handle those challenges. I chose to face mine with integrity, which includes being honest about both my successes and my setbacks." I turned to look directly at Megan. "Speaking of honesty, I believe congratulations are in order. Megan has been telling us for years about her dream to buy a vacation home on Lake George, a place to recreate the wonderful summers we spent at our grandmother's cabin as children, a place for family." Megan's face paled slightly. "How did you know about Willow Creek Cottage?" I finished for her. "You've mentioned it at every family gathering for the past 2 years. You said you were only 6 months away from making an offer." Confusion crossed Megan's face. "I am. I have a viewing scheduled for Monday." I pulled out my phone and opened the email from Patricia. "Actually, I'm afraid the property is no longer available. It went under contract this morning." "That's impossible," Megan said, her voice rising. "I've been watching that property for years. My real estate contact promised to alert me the moment it came on the market." "It was a foreclosure," I explained. "The bank wanted a quick sale. They accepted an offer from Jay Wilson this morning." For a moment, Megan looked confused. Then understanding dawned in her eyes. "Jay Wilson. Jane Wilson. You bought my house." "I bought a house," I corrected her. "One that happens to hold special meaning for both of us." "You had no right," Megan's voice cracked with anger. "You knew how much I wanted that property. I've been saving for 5 years. To turn it into a rental property," I added quietly. "Part of a luxury vacation rental complex. Not exactly the family retreat you described to everyone." Gasps and murmurs spread through the family as this new information sank in. "How dare you," Megan spluttered. "You've been spying on me." I shook my head. "The development plans are public record, Megan. Anyone can access them." "So you bought it out of spite," she demanded, "just to keep me from having it." "No," I said, my anger finally giving way to sadness. "I bought it because when I saw it, I remembered what Lake George meant to us once, before the competition took over everything else." I looked around at our family, all watching this drama unfold with uncomfortable fascination. "Do you remember the swing on Grandma's porch?" I asked Megan, my voice softening. "The one where we carved our initials, M+J forever." Something flickered in Megan's eyes. A brief glimpse of the sister I had once been so close to. "Willow Creek Cottage has that same swing," I continued. "Maybe even the original one from Grandma's salvaged when her cabin was demolished. When I saw it this morning, it felt like a sign." The yard had gone completely silent again, but the quality of the silence had changed. It was no longer tense with embarrassment, but heavy with unexpected emotion. "You went behind my back," Megan said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. "Yes," I admitted. Just like you went behind mine when you planned to announce my financial troubles to the entire family. We've both made choices we might regret. Megan stared at me for a long moment, then abruptly turned and walked into the house. The screen door slammed behind her with a decisive bang. I slowly sat back down, suddenly aware that 30 pairs of eyes were fixed on me. Amanda squeezed my hand under the table. "Well said, Uncle Dave," from the end of the table, breaking the silence. "I think I need something stronger than iced tea for this family drama. Anyone else?" A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the gathering, and gradually conversations resumed. Some relatives avoided looking in my direction, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation they had witnessed. Others gave me supportive smiles or curious glances. My parents made their way to my side, concern written across their faces. "You didn't have to defend us," Mom said, quietly taking the seat Megan had vacated. "I wasn't defending you," I replied. "I was telling the truth. All of it." Dad put his hand on my shoulder. "The lake house. Can you really afford it?" "Yes," I assured him. "My financial situation has improved significantly. The settlement money covered the down payment, and my new salary can handle the mortgage." "Megan will be devastated," Mom said, glancing toward the house. "I know," I acknowledged. "But maybe this needed to happen. We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't." As the lunch continued around us, I couldn't help wondering what would happen next. The secret was out, not just about my bankruptcy, but about the years of competition and resentment between Megan and me. Whatever came after this, at least we would be dealing with the truth, not the carefully maintained facades we had been hiding behind for so long. Megan avoided me for the remainder of the afternoon. She reappeared for the family photo, standing at the opposite end of the group from me, her smile tight, and her eyes carefully avoiding mine. As soon as the photographer lowered his camera, she disappeared again, claiming a migraine. I considered leaving early, returning to my hotel room to process everything that had happened. But something kept me there. A sense that the confrontation at lunch hadn't truly resolved anything. We had exposed our secrets and hurt each other publicly, but we hadn't really talked. After dinner, as families with young children began saying their goodbyes, I found myself helping Aunt Susan clear the dessert table. She had been quiet all afternoon, unusually reserved for a woman known for her direct approach to family conflict. "You should go talk to her," she said, finally, nodding toward the guest room where Megan had retreated. "This isn't the kind of thing that heals on its own." "I'm not sure she wants to talk to me," I replied, gathering empty paper plates. "Of course she doesn't," Aunt Susan scoffed. "When has that ever stopped you two from fighting? Why should it stop you from making up?" I smiled despite myself. Aunt Susan had always had a way of cutting through the drama to the heart of things. "You know," she continued, lowering her voice, "your grandmother worried about you two. Even when you were little girls, she saw how that competitive streak could either bind you together or tear you apart. She always hoped you'd find your way back to being sisters first, competitors second." I thought about the swing at Willow Creek Cottage, about the faded M+J carving that might or might not have been our childhood handiwork. "Thank you for the push," I said, giving Aunt Susan a quick hug before heading inside. I knocked softly on the guest room door. No response. I knocked again, slightly louder. "Go away," came Megan's voice, thick with what sounded like tears. I hesitated, then turned the knob. The door was unlocked. Megan was sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to the door, shoulders hunched. "I said go away," she repeated without turning around. "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me, but not moving further into the room. "Really talk, not just score points off each other." Megan's shoulders stiffened. "What's left to say? You won. You got the house. You made me look like the villain in front of the whole family." "This isn't about winning," I said, frustrated that she still saw everything through that lens. "And if anyone made you look bad, it was you. I didn't ask you to announce my bankruptcy. No, you just decided to one-up me by buying the property I've been working toward for 5 years." I sighed and moved to sit on the small chair by the window, giving her space but positioning myself where she would have to look at me. "Why did you want that cottage, Megan? Really?" She finally turned to face me, her eyes red-rimmed but defiant. "Because it was perfect. The location, the rental potential." "No," I interrupted. "The truth." "Why that specific cottage?" Something in my tone must have reached her, because her defensive expression faltered. "Because it reminded me of Grandma's place," she admitted quietly. "When I first saw it 3 years ago during a property tour, I walked out onto that porch and it felt like being a kid again. Before everything got so complicated between us." "The swing," I said, nodding. "It got to me too." You really think it could be the same one from Grandma's? I shrugged. Maybe. The timing fits. Either way, it felt like a connection to those summers. A silence fell between us, less hostile than before. So what happens now? Megan finally asked. You got the cottage. Are you going to rub it in every chance you get? Make sure I never forget how you beat me to it. That wasn't my plan, I said honestly. When I first heard about the foreclosure, yes, I was partly motivated by wanting to stop you. But when I actually saw the place, I paused, searching for the right words. It felt like it could be a fresh start, a place to remember what we used to be to each other before the competition took over everything. Megan's laugh was hollow. A bit late for that, don't you think? Maybe, I acknowledged, but I'd like to try. I took a deep breath and laid out the proposal I had been considering since leaving the cottage that morning. I bought the house because it felt right, but I never intended to keep you from enjoying it too. My original thought was to offer you partial ownership or guaranteed time there each year, a place we could both connect with those memories. And now, Megan asked, her voice carefully neutral. Now I know you are planning to turn it into a rental property, part of a larger development. That wasn't what I had in mind. Megan had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. The development was a business opportunity that came up later. My original intention really was just to have a place on the lake again. Then why not be honest about that with the family? She shrugged. It's easier to talk about investment potential than sentimental value. Dad always taught us that emotions and money don't mix well. I thought about our father, a practical accountant who approached every purchase with a cost-benefit analysis. He had probably never understood how much that lake meant to us as children. What if the cottage stayed a family place, I suggested. Not your rental property, not my private retreat, but somewhere for all of us. Somewhere Mom and Dad could spend summers now that they're getting older, where cousins could bring their kids to experience the lake like we did. Megan looked skeptical. You just share it after everything. Not unconditionally, I clarified. I own the property, but I'd be willing to establish a fair system for family use, including you if you wanted that. And if I don't, I met her gaze directly. Then that's your choice. The door will remain open. Megan was silent for a long moment, studying my face as if trying to detect some hidden agenda. Why are you doing this? She asked finally. After I tried to humiliate you in front of everyone, it was a fair question. One I had asked myself repeatedly throughout the day. Because I'm tired, I said simply. Tired of competing. Tired of measuring every achievement against each other. Tired of letting our relationship be defined by who's winning. I stood up and moved toward the door, then paused with my hand on the knob. The cottage will be there when you're ready. No rush, no pressure. Just think about what you really want, Megan. Not what looks impressive or beats me, but what would actually make you happy. I left her there, closing the door quietly behind me. I didn't know if my words had made any difference, but for the first time in years, I had spoken honestly to my sister without trying to position myself as more successful or more worthy. It felt like my own small victory. The following day, most of the extended family departed after breakfast. My parents pulled me aside before leaving, concerns still evident in their expressions. Are you and Megan going to be okay? Mom asked, glancing toward where Megan was saying goodbye to Aunt Susan. Eventually, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. We've got a lot of history to work through. Dad squeezed my shoulder. We should have stepped in years ago when the competition between you two first started getting out of hand. We thought it was just normal sibling rivalry. It's not your fault, I assured him. We were adults making our own choices. Still, Mom said we didn't help by comparing you two all the time. I hugged them, both grateful for their acknowledgement, even if it came decades late. Come visit the lake house in August, I said, once I'm settled in. Both of us? Dad asked, his meaning clear. The invitation is open to everyone, I replied, including Megan. It's her choice whether to accept. 3 months later, I stood on the dock at Willow Creek Cottage, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and pink. The summer season was winding down, but the days were still warm enough for swimming. I had spent most weekends here since closing on the property, gradually making it my own while preserving its rustic charm. True to my word, I had established a calendar for family use. My parents had visited twice, already reconnecting with their own memories of summers at the lake. Cousins with young children had come for long weekends, filling the cottage with the sounds of laughter and excited splashing that reminded me of my own childhood visits. Megan had not responded to my invitation. I wasn't surprised, really. The wounds between us had been festering for too long to heal quickly. Part of me wondered if they would ever heal at all. But I had meant what I said. The door remained open. I returned to the porch as the last light faded from the sky, settling into the wooden swing that had become my favorite spot for morning coffee and evening reflection. In the 3 months since the confrontation at the reunion, I had thought a lot about success and failure, about what truly mattered in life. My bankruptcy had seemed like the end of the world when it happened, proof that I wasn't as capable or successful as I pretended to be. But facing that failure had ultimately freed me from the endless cycle of trying to prove myself. I no longer felt the need to impress anyone with my financial acumen or career achievements. I had failed publicly, survived, and discovered that life continued. My phone buzzed with a text message. I expected it to be Amanda, who was planning to visit the following weekend. Instead, I saw Megan's name on the screen. My heart beat faster as I opened the message. "Can we talk? Not about the house. Just talk." I stared at those words for a long moment, then typed a simple reply. "Yes, whenever you're ready." 3 dots appeared indicating she was typing. Then, "I'm ready now." It wasn't a guarantee of reconciliation. We had decades of competition and hurt feelings to work through. But it was a start, a first step toward finding our way back to being sisters first, rivals second, just as Grandma had hoped we would. As I sat there on the porch swing, watching the first stars appear over the lake, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From financial success to bankruptcy, from bitter rivalry to the possibility of reconciliation. I had lost and found myself along the way, discovering that true wealth wasn't measured in bank balances or property deeds, but in the courage to be vulnerable, to face failure, and to keep the door open to those who had hurt us. Have you ever experienced a rivalry with a sibling or family member that got out of hand? What do you think is the most important thing to remember when trying to heal a fractured relationship? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content, and share it with someone who might need to hear that reconciliation is always possible, even after years of hurt. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings some comfort or perspective to your own family relationships.